Mother, forgive us for our sins, for we know not what we do. I am right outside your door. Mother, you scream no more. And nothing, nothing can tear me away. We've been fighting for so long, back and forth, oh God. I'll stand up for you. There's nothing I won't do. I'll give you my everything. I'll never let you fall. And down the river we go. So run it by my hand. I'll give you my everything. I'll never let you fall. Let you fall now. I won't let you fall now.
All right. I don't know if this is working. Can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me? I'm guessing that's a no. Let's try again. Can anyone hear me? We hear you. Okay, good. Thank you. Hi, guys. I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing here. Thought it might be fun though. So let's see. My webcam sucks. There might be some background noise. There's laundry happening underneath me. My neighbors are using the opportunity to have a nice, fun karaoke party. So you might hear a little bit of bleed through from that. If so, I apologize. But I just came to hang out, maybe say hello to people. So hi, everybody. No real topic here. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world. Maybe I want to keep things a little lighter, but I don't think that's possible given, why you're all here. But we'll do our best. What are we seeing right now? We're seeing a virus that we've all had in our body for a very long time be activated due to 5G technology. As they've been ramping up these different ways to manipulate frequencies in the environment, they have gained more and more access to our nervous system. When they give us these vaccines, they have these diseases in them, viruses, sorry. They sit dormant in our nervous system and can be turned on and off using various frequencies. So that's that. They turned it on. When something like that is turned on, we can start passing it amongst ourselves, which is where things get into trouble. Usually they are pretty careful about how they start turning things on and off, but in this case they weren't. Kind of made some jokes that since the Draco left, these Illuminati people aren't so smart, and it's starting to show up. Oh, Jesus. Asking me about Thomas already? Ask me later. But yes, now that this has kind of gone viral, quite literally, they have to make some adjustments. And they're also using it to their advantage, which means, they're obviously not in full martial law or anything. They're just kind of putting the chess pieces in place in case it gets to that point. And I think a lot of that depends on us. our reaction to it, how well we do at containing this thing, as well as how we react to the isolation. A lot to talk about in terms of how this is going to affect us all, being kind of stuck in our houses for, potentially 4 months or more. A lot of lonely people out there to begin with, and this is just not going to help. Mental health is a big problem, as I'm sure everyone listening to me knows, and this is just going to make matters worse. Addictions. I saw a lot of people, because here in Canada, they've locked down a lot of things that they call non-essential, but they left all the liquor stores open and where we buy our marijuana. Some people started complaining about that, being like, how is that essential? Well, if you've ever seen someone in the throes of alcohol addiction, you would understand the answer to that question. I think it's not the time to be making a whole bunch of people go cold turkey on things. Maybe soon enough that they have to, but for now, I think we should try and keep these things open. I think a lot of us are probably pretty used to being isolated. I mean, part of the waking up process is going through a period of isolation. So if you're listening to this, you've obviously been through that process at some point in time, and therefore you probably know all about being alone. So I guess we can come together as a community, do stupid stuff like this on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you do it, and try and help each other get through it. I'm not scared of the virus personally. Due to personal experience, I'm a little bit immune. Also, the effects of it are something that I think that my body would probably deal fairly well with, despite my smoking and other things. I could be wrong. Glad I don't really have to test that water, but like with anything else, I mean, our power as creative beings is always there, and we always have the ability to keep these things away from us and build up our immunities with our own personal energy. So there's a lot of work that we can do using our magic to make sure that we stay healthy and people around us can also stay healthy. So I encourage people to do that. I know ritual is kind of a dirty word, but the purpose of ritual is to give your mind something tangible to lock onto so that your imagination can have a conduit in order to come to life. And performing little things like, I don't know, blessing your water before you drink it, or putting good intentions into your food as you're cooking it, things like that are really beneficial to our bodies right now. We're very powerful spiritual beings that operate a pretty frail physical vehicle, so we have to look after it. I think that sums up everything I want to say about the virus myself. So I'm going to get this party started. I'm going to hit a bong, and then I'll start looking at your questions there. If you're watching this being like, what the fuck, he's about to smoke marijuana? Yes, I am. If you don't like it, just shut off. It's all good. All right. Smoke them if you got them. First question I've seen is about Thomas. I think I've said enough, haven't I? I mean, some people watching don't even know what you're talking about, so let's sum it up. Kim approached me. I listened to her. I heard her out. I realized I did not believe her, and I did not want to support her ideas in the alternative community. She had asked me to get in touch with Thomas. I put her in touch with Thomas, letting Thomas know exactly how I felt. I didn't speak to Thomas for a long period of time. I came back, and my perception of what he was doing was nothing really, because I wasn't paying any attention. And then once I did start paying attention, I realized that he was running with Kim's scam. which in and of itself I didn't have any problem with, but I ended up having a lot of people contact me who were very hurt by it all. So I made the statement I did on Jimmy Brent's show Inside the Matrix, which was, without naming any names, just to try and say, brother, please don't do it. And that was it. All right, from there, I made a Facebook post that was not about them at all, and Kim came on and had her little meltdown, and that started everything else. So hopefully that sums all of that up, and we can move on from there. Next question. Anybody want to ask me anything? Should I just talk about my wall here? I'm in a kitchen. This is my kitchen. This is my kitchen wall. I share a house with up to 3 other people. Right now, we had one roommate move out right before this. So weren't able to fill that position with all this virus stuff going on. One has gone away and one is still living here, but the one that is still here, he did this, and I think it's awesome. There's a stairwell beside me here going down to our basement that also has it all down the ceiling. One way to reuse some old CD stuff. So, you often say we are powerful. What is this powerful? Not sure what it is. How do we use this power? All right, well, our bodies generate power. I'm sure you've seen the chakra points, the chakra charts, and understand what they mean. That circuit generates power in and of itself just by you being alive and the soul occupying the body. That power is what Loosh comes from. That power is what AI feeds from. That's power is what everybody would feed from if they were going to feed off of your energy. Even a psychic vampire that you deal with in day-to-day life is more or less doing the same thing. We're all generating this energy, and it's just kind of going out because we're not all of us are aware, and therefore we're not kind of holding on to it. We're not using it, and it has to go somewhere. So if we don't hold on to it in some way, it's going to go out. Other people can feed on it. So that's where the energy is coming from. 2 other sources of energy, the one from the cosmos, the universe, it's always there, because cosmic universal energy, whatever you want to call that. And then another source of energy comes from the spirit of our planet, whatever planet we happen to be on. And the 3 sources of energy kind of work in unison to create more vectors of energy. So that's where what our power is that we as the individuals are the ones creating that power, that, you know, the powers that be, as people call them, want. And we can choose to let it go. We can choose to let them feed on it. We can choose to let it evaporate into nothing or go to whatever entity is around us, or we can learn how to harness it within ourselves and use it for our own reason. You can do that through visualization. There's lots of different meditation techniques you can go out and look for in terms of, you know, generating this energy, holding this energy. I kind of go with whatever works for you, visualization wise. If you want to picture, you know, a little box right here that you're going to grab all that energy and shove it down into, and keep it nice and safe, and then open that box and take stuff out of it as you need to, then that's what works for you, and that will work. So hopefully that answers that question. I think I might have missed some, so I'm going to scroll up here a little bit. It won't let me scroll up. Come on. Oh, there it goes. Oh, a question about eating meat. Is being a meat eater a bad thing, especially now? Thanks. Well, it's a bad thing because it's going to get harder and harder to get, therefore more and more expensive. So intention is very important. The whole idea of blessing food comes from the fact that intention is very important. A lot of people who stay away from meat do so because they don't like the way factory farms are run. Totally understand that. Some people believe that if you're eating something that you've killed, then you're not gaining any life force energy, but it's kind of backwards if you're killing plants to eat them and chewing them up while they're still alive. But people don't look at plants as alive. The same people will talk about talking to trees. It's kind of confusing. But from my own viewpoint, my own understanding of things, plants are very much alive, and life feeds on life. And there's no viable energy source on this planet for humans that doesn't require taking life. Now, different life forms have a different level of spirit and therefore have to be respected in different ways. And a lot of the things that we eat in terms of plant-based meals are kind of pure and alive and exist for eating. We have domesticated animals and turned those into things that are also meant for eating, but most science will tell you that our brain developed because of meat eating, so there's obviously something to it. I can't say that it's bad. Let's kind of sum it up as that. I can't say there's no part of me that can look at it and say it's bad. There's bad things about it in terms of where you get your meat, but given where we're at, I don't think it's bad. All right. I hope that answers that one enough. Is the bloodline active again? I'm not sure how to answer that question because bloodline has started meaning less and less and less over the last 100 years. Every year that goes by and every baby that gets made within it, it means less. So I wouldn't say that it's ever not been active. It's always been active in a sense. It's just, the blood part of it means a lot less these days than the family name and being accepted by that family. If I'm missing questions, I'm sorry. This is all new to me. And my computer just doesn't want to load them. It's a little annoying. Fungus. So the same reason the trees have that network that they have is because of the roots being obviously rooted into the earth, and fungus is everywhere. So it's the same type of, you can call it like a neurological network. It's just a lot bigger, and therefore is actually a more intense and direct source of information than trees even. Trees are usually easier to talk to for those who are able of communicating in that way because they have more of a personality, where fungus has a little bit more hive mind type vibe to it. So, yeah. I'm like scrolling up just looking for question marks. So if you do have a question, make sure you leave a question mark. Don't trust Shayne. He has a double agendas. Well, yes, of course I do. That's why I'm here making an ass of myself on YouTube. Yes, everything you consume is a source of energy. Everything that is on this planet is a source of energy, because everything is just energy condensed down in by various frequency responses. So intention matters. It's the same thing like I said with ritual. I like to use a pentagram as an example. Set up right, it's a magical symbol. You flip it upside down, it's the mark of the devil. It's all about intention. Putting the intention behind a symbol matters, and putting intention behind what you consume matters. So you don't necessarily have to be afraid of things. You can kind of trust yourself to be able to deal with them as they come and transmutate things. That's what alchemy was all about, was being able to take one thing and turn it into another. It's that magic trick that Jesus played, turning water into wine. Wine was easier to carry back in the day than a lot of water, and it kind of gave you a little bit more energy than drinking water did, so it made a lot of sense to turn water into wine. Something to think about. My biggest fear, I don't like open water because I've seen some things that live in open water. up close and personal that I would never want to, be swimming above. So that might be my biggest fear, if I have fears. Can you tell a story that showed you, personally, how much intention matters? Not sure I totally understand what you're asking me, but I'll do my best. Um, I can sit around with anyone. I could sit next to a vampire and have a perfectly sane conversation with them. I can sit down with my worst enemy and have a perfectly sane conversation with them because I'm not afraid of what their energy or their influence will do on me because I know what my intentions are. So whether I was having dinner with, the, I don't know, Mother Teresa, or I was having dinner with the Black Pope, it wouldn't make a difference to me because I know where my intentions sit, and I know that they and their energy can't change that. Little things I do every day is like when I see the sun, I, I breathe in and I breathe out like gratitude, thanks. I'm not necessarily thanking the sun. I'm kind of thanking that cosmic source of energy that helps to animate me while I'm here. Um, and that usually helps me have better days. If I don't do that, my days go funny, and that's it. I've had pretty good success at changing people off of a bad path by setting my intention behind the words that I share with them, helping people like addicts, things like that. Hopefully, that's what you meant by giving an example. Was Jesus Radomir? Jesus is a name we gave to a type of figure that existed during a time where religion was being created. It's kind of like the Dread Pirate Roberts from Princess Bride. A person existed that we have given that title to, but Radomir would be another example of a title like Jesus. So kind of the same thing, different part of the world at a different time. There was a question here about can we get any proof of my background? It's fascinating for sure, but how can we know you speak the truth? You don't really spill all the beans, to be honest. Yeah, I can't prove it to you. I've never tried, and I've been quite clear that there's no way to prove it to you. And I don't expect you to believe me just because I'm saying it, and you're welcome to not listen or just disregard what I'm saying in that regard outright based on what you believe. Um, and I don't know how to prove it because a lot of the items that I might be able to show you that would prove it, I definitely wouldn't be able to show you and still live a normal life, which I worked very hard in order to achieve and live. So I'm going to stick to that. Other than that, I'm not sure how else to answer your question. There is no way to prove my background to you. I can't prove it. I've never claimed that I could. I've been very open about the fact that I can't. And yeah, you're welcome to disregard everything that I say. Um, I'll leave it at that. How's the water so far? It's kind of funny. Just because I'm not used to it, it feels awkward. I don't like talking by myself. That's why I like to do conversations. What's the first joke that comes to mind? Probably something dirty, so maybe I should take it off of that. I was doing this thing I saw someone else do where I was texting people, telling them that I was bored because of the social distancing and texting random numbers to pick a fight and asking them if they wanted to play. And one guy came back saying, it ended up being a guy, I found out later, but one person came back saying that, yeah, they were in. So first thing I told them was that their mother dressed them funny and that they should burn their pants. And all they did was laugh and then tell me that the gloves were coming off. And I said, okay, well then bring it, but don't touch me without your gloves. So that was the first joke that came to mind. Can't be touching people without gloves and all. Oh my God, it's out social distance. I brought up Jesus, and I guess if I'm going to tell a dirty joke, I'll use that one. Why do women like Jesus? Because he's hung like this. All right, more questions. Shayne, that's me. I don't have any more questions. So that means I'll smoke another bomb. This is what you guys are going to do to me. It's a good thing I'm not taking shots, or this would get really, really stupid in a hurry. Oh, Hazel, you're going to do this to me? Huh. So I've kind of said it a couple times. Going to have to go into more detail another time. But imagine we've gone through all of this before. We hit an end and there was an AI system recording it all and kind of put us in Pod's Matrix style and just repeats what we already went through on like a loop. That's the concept that you're referring to. Us being on the last loop, that comes from the idea that we've been going on multiple loops from it, and I am personally a subscriber to that notion and also fully believe that this is the last of them. It wasn't supposed to go on for more, Hazel. It was only supposed to go once, but it went 6 times. Now we're kind of fucked. I'm going to record a podcast about that soon, but that could take up all of this one. So hopefully my answer for now is good enough. A fun, quirky experience. Oh no. Well, I mean, there's lots from like a real world thing. Oh Jesus, I hate. There's too many of them. I can't decide which one to tell you. Don't talk about the reptile growing mushrooms out in the bush. We don't have to do that. Fun, quirky experience. I've had this magnetic draw to people who probably should be in the alternative community, but maybe aren't. Recently, I was working at a job, bartending and cooking, and I had a man come in. I saw him first watching through the window. There was a basketball game on, and he was watching the basketball game through the window. And then he came in and he went to sit down, and he's like, "What do you guys do here? I don't know why I'm in here. Maybe Serge told me to come in. That's one of the basketball players." Okay, that's a little odd. So I explained to him, why we were there. Well, I mean, what we do here at the restaurant. So he made a suggestion. He placed his order. I served him and went on about my evening for a bit, and then came back to clear his plate and refill his beer. And he immediately started telling me about how he had removed some reptiles from his field earlier in the day, how he was meditating and he just saw these like reptilian beings kind of crawling all over his energy field. And so he was like, "Hey, you get off of me, get off of me." This is what he was saying. And then he looks at me and he's like, "I think you can help me with those things. What do I do when those come around?" And so I kind of laughed. I'm like, "Exactly what you did do. Just chuck them off." We ended up getting into a bit of a conversation about reptilians, and he's done a bunch of research. He has all David Icke's books, so he isn't completely new to the subject, but had no idea that there was this group of people online who talk about this stuff every day because he doesn't go on the internet. And so it got really funny because he had asked if we could talk again. And I'm like, "Sure, here's my email address." He's like, "I don't use email." I'm like, "Oh, okay, well then, do you have Facebook?" "No, I don't go on the internet." I'm like, "Okay, well, here's my phone number." "I don't have a phone. I only have a landline, and it's for outgoing calls only." I'm like, "So you can call me from it?" He's like, "I only use it for emergencies." Okay, then what would you like to do? And he writes down his address on a piece of paper and he hands it to me. He's like, can you just write me letters and leave your address on the letter, and I'll read your letter and I'll respond to your letter and I'll just mail it back to you. And I look at the address and this guy lives about a block from me, like literally, like he lives over there. Like if the walls weren't in the way, I could probably see the guy's house. Um, but he wanted me to mail him letters, so we've been mailing letters back and forth around the corner. That's a little quirky. Vedas. Uh, I can't get into specific mythology. I had an overview of all of these different religions and mythologies and kind of understood that they all had the same source. They're all told in different cultural tongues, so to speak, during different times, in different places, over the course of history. So they all kind of overlap with each other. And they're all kind of the same thing. You'll notice the characters are all the same from scripture to scripture, story to story. And that is because they're all talking about the same thing. And all of the modern religions are all a little bit twisted from ancient human religion and the Draco influence on those in order to build them into control structures. So all of them have a little bit of value and all of them need to be taken with a grain of salt. And so I guess the quick story about the reptile with the mushrooms. Not all Draco, not all reptiles, not all anything are really bad. Just because they come from a family, just because they are a certain type of species, just because they have been involved in something that is dark doesn't mean that they're evil, and they are dark. Intention is everything. And sometimes you will get born into a family. I mean, it's probably true for most of you. You're born into a family you don't fit into. So imagine being born into, something like that, or imagine being a species like a Draco and being born into that whole nonsense, and then being like, but there's good. And then you get to planet Earth and you see that there's all this like really cool biology going on and that you don't have at home, and you're like, hey, I kind of want to just hang out here. So you defect and you're like, okay, well, I know where humans go and where they don't. I know where to hide. I mean, Sasquatch do it every day. Panda did it for years. I can hide too. And so you just go build yourself a cabin out in the middle of nowhere and you grow mushrooms because you think that they're cute, not realizing they're really good for consumption until you decide to get high as fuck one day, and then your obsession just becomes an absolute obsession, and all you do is grow mushrooms and live out in the woods and be a Draco. So be careful where you go wandering in the woods. You might see something scary. Underground places. I'm editing a podcast right now that is all about that. How can we access those to see them if they're real? You never would. Any of the bigger entrances that like trucks and stuff would use are usually guarded by security, if not military. Um, Maybe if you can get into a bigger city, talk to some people who do work for the city, especially if they're truck drivers, low IQ truck drivers, they may have accessed some of those places, but obviously very well hidden for what should be obvious, I guess. And yeah, I mean, if I were to give you specific locations, I'd be breaking a rule that would get me in trouble. Uh, I kind of give the tip of they usually look like an old structure, something that's been there for a long time, like probably since before the 80s. Uh, that may look like an old bank or something like that that is not being used. And then a lot of entrances are kind of way back in the sticks. Like I live in Canada, so you go like down major highways, and then there's these offshoots of side roads and stuff. If you go down some of those, you might see these. They kind of look like quarry sites or something like that, construction sites. And some of those have, entrances, big tunnels to the underground networks in cities. So that was that. Is the AI back in times of Atlantis? It showed up a little bit after Atlantis left, but Atlantis had its own AI. AI has been around long before any of that. Just in terms of the AI that we're dealing with, I think you're asking about now, it's been here since just after Atlantis left. Nessie, it's not like there's just one. There's lots of them. There have been lots of them. The modern version of the Illuminati, if you will, the military structure of that has been capturing them for years as often as they can, and if not killing them when they can. They have a few in captivity. There's probably still a few in the wild that they've just not been able to track down and catch yet. But with the technology today, I kind of doubt that. They've probably got them all by now. But yeah, they're just it's a species of water animal that used to be kind of common in our water a long time ago now. That they live for a long time and they breed in small amounts and are able to exist even to this day in some places. Hi, Randy. No, you'd like the wall. All right. What is going on? The Giants at this point, I am not really sure, other than what I had said before. What I know of was taken away. I imagine there's still been some discoveries from there, but I'm not aware of any of it. Let's just, all I can really say is I hope they're happy and safe. But if any more were around that got captured for whatever reason, I'm gonna have to doubt that. The occult ban has been lifted. I wish that were true. No problem, racing paper planes. Much love and respect. Why can't AI just make things as comfortable for us as possible as they want to make us transhuman? Well, because that's just not how things roll out. And that's something I've said is once a lot of these systems change, we will, depending on your point of view, we will enter a world of a little bit more comfort. As a lot of the automated systems come online, a lot of the new technologies and stuff, these things are going to be sold to us in a way that it will make the world better. My problem with it is just that it's divorcing us from our nature and taking us away from the magic that we should be all using for ourselves and giving the power over to another entity, which in this form is technology. So that's why I disagree with what they're doing, but for a lot of people, it will seem like the world is about to get a lot more comfortable. How do I feel about my family in relation to the CV? Do you have any protection? No. Can we use magic for our imagination to protect ours? Yes. You might have missed it, or then maybe that was when you were disconnected. But I did talk about that earlier. Absolutely, we can use our own creator magic to fight this virus, because really that's all it is a virus that's trying to fight that against us. So you better be fighting it. We should all be fighting it. And that's kind of why I want to do this, is put all of our intention behind not giving into the fear of that bullshit and just saying, I'm stronger than you, and I don't have to listen to all your bullshit. And I can look after myself. I can be responsible for myself. I don't need your vaccinations. I'm going to trust myself. I'm going to look after my own family and that kind of thing, as opposed to, oh my God, we're all going to fucking die and this is happening because the cabal hate us. All of those other things that we do that just lessen ourselves to ourselves. All of you listening, you're way more powerful than any person I ever met within the Illuminati. Time out for fun. Remember to have fun. Soul recycling, all that nonsense. I thought we put that to bed a little while ago in this community, but I will repeat, there's no such thing anymore. And when we die from here, we're going to get out of this, and we're going to do exactly what incarnation allows us to do, which is do whatever we want. No more being so scared of all of these bad things keeping us locked in place. Our power is here, and we're going to use it. So no worries. Enjoy your life. Do everything you can within this life to better the entire universe for all of us. And that'll be that. Party on, Wayne. The comparative mind is a dangerous thing. Groupthink, exactly. It's kind of how, like, myself navigating this community, I determine who's real and who's not, is that they're not following a script and a framework that was presented before them. When they sound just like everybody else, then I'm like, oh, okay, so you're just following like everybody else. We have personalities as individuals, and that's okay. We should have personalities as individuals, and we shouldn't be so prudish against each other and all the fighting. Comparing comes from comparing, what we believe is right, what we do, to what other people do or what we feel like they should do. So a little bit of live and let live, maybe, people. People are going to drink, people are going to smoke, people are going to have sex, people are going to enjoy being human, people are going to do their thing, and that's all okay. It's educating people about the dangers of this is great and all, but like putting the fear back into them that if they go anywhere near them is really kind of defeating your own purpose, right? So there's that. Next question. No more mushroom eating reptiles. I don't know if I could tell my mushroom story. I ate like 6 grams not that long ago. Spent hours thinking I was going to die. It was a lot of fun. I say sarcastically, but it was, in hindsight, a lot of fun. I'm getting important text message, people. I'm very sorry. I have to put you on hold for 1 second. Whoa, that wasn't what I meant to open. Children. My kids have been hilarious. But we don't need to go into that. Okay. Did I see any questions? Any ideas of how to help others stay connected to nature? A lot of them are buried in their phones, TV, etc. Well, I mean, like, just some basic tips. Like, I like to take walks and leave my phone at home. That's a good one. Like, do something each day if you can, where you leave your phone so far out of reach that even if you wanted to, you couldn't go grab it. That's a good thing to do. Leave your phone at home and go for a walk. The basics of grounding into nature, doing things like getting your feet back in the grass and in the dirt, take off your shoes and socks and dig your toes in, hugging trees. We all, as hippies, have heard about. Deep breaths when outside, focusing on things that you see in the sky. If you see birds, stop and look at them and watch them. If you see cats, say hello. Things like that. Anytime you're trying to interact with any part of nature, anything that comes from Earth, you are doing that, and you're having an energy exchange with our mother that is very, very important. So aside from those type of tips, it's discipline. Yeah, that's what it is. You have to set aside hours of the day where you stay away from technology. You have to, to say you're going to stay off social media and mean it. You have to hold yourself to these things, but it's a lot easier said than done because of the dopamine drips that come along with it for a lot of people. So, um, yeah, that's kind of the best thing is to schedule some things. Think of an action that you can do that doesn't involve technology and make it a priority to do it. Hold yourself to that. Have I heard of a new Earth triple system coming? If so, thoughts? I'm assuming this is talking about Planet X, Nibiru, all of that. I know that system exists. Whether or not it's there, I'm not sure of. It should be. Um, I'm personally seeing something in the night sky. I'm not sure what it is yet, and it's a little bit too early for me to speculate one way or another. That is what it is. But I have a feeling that sometime after the whole virus thing here starts to wrap up, we're going to get some type of announcement about something like that, and it might be a bunch of bullshit. It's almost like with things like this, I don't like to speculate because I don't want you to put too much weight into what I'm saying because I'm speculating myself. So please allow that to be clear while I'm saying this. It could be that that's what it is, and that could be what I'm seeing, and it could be time for that. One of the big things about that is just because of our understanding of what planets are and how gravity works and all of that, it's not the catastrophic event that a lot of people think it would be. Uh, it won't affect us in that way. The ways that it could affect us is them selling us on the idea that we're about to have to interact with said planet. It's kind of like a reverse alien invasion where they lead us up to it. So just something to be aware of. I'm not saying they're going to do it or that is going to happen. It's just something they could do. So keep an eye out for that. And in terms of what I know about it, what I know says that it's there, but it shouldn't be where they're saying that it is, and it shouldn't be a problem. Stop moving for a second so I can finish reading. Spells. Yeah, we should create our own. A lot of the pre-written ones have a built-in intention. So if you're going to use words as spells, then yes, you should definitely create your own with your own intentions. What is my opinion on why this is all happening right now? Well, my own opinion. Take from it what you will. They've had these plans in place for a long time. There's a lot of digital systems that they need to move us over onto that require a lot of restructuring of infrastructures, and it's a lot easier to do that if we're all at home. I think a key to them starting to do that is the fact that a lot of these different contract workers haven't been told to stay home. It's hard to say because they could do a lot of different things, and I don't want to feed any of them, to be honest. So I don't want to give you all of the potentials. But I think what has happened is kind of what I said earlier: is they've created this problem. Their solution is going to be to take advantage of it the best they can, extend 5G, extend technologies that automate systems. This benefits package that they're putting out is essentially universal basic income. And from my understanding of economics, which isn't all that strong, once you start something like that, you can never really just shut it off. So, and because there's been a lot of talk about doing it anyways, and because it does fit into the Agenda 21 of keeping us at home and in smaller and smaller boxes, I think that what we saw when they started implementing those things is a change in the world that none of us can predict yet. So my basic answer to the question is that they're taking advantage. This has happened because they turned on 5G and then it had effects they didn't, or thought they could manage, realized they couldn't, and now they're taking advantage of the situation to put other plans that they've had into place. I'm gonna tie up my hair, people, so I stopped playing with it. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that covers that question. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. Is the intro on, clip on your intro before learning from a film? The audio clip, yes. It's a song that I guess remixed. A good friend of mine, her name is Tanya, had given me like a very short clip of a song at one point in time that I used as an intro to a bigger song. And that song includes dialogue audio from the movie The Neverending Story. That conversation that's happens between Sebastian and his father right near the beginning of the movie, where he's talking about these dreams that he's having and the effect that those dreams are having on him. And his father's basically telling him, you need to keep your feet on the ground. So when I was coming up with an intro to this, it just seemed appropriate. So the song is actually called Less Than, and there's more clips of the movie and the actual full song. And that's up on one of my other YouTube channels. It's called Lights for the Dark. If you care to look at it, just instrumental stuff. It's fun to meditate to. More coffee, more bongs for me. There's no questions. Woo-hoo. You're very welcome. You probably noticed this channel isn't monetized, and it won't be. I have to delete my Patreon. I'm so lazy sometimes. I like people, and after everything that I've been through, if I can't use it to help people who it can help, then it was a waste of fucking time. So if I can use it to help any of you, then I'm more than happy to do so. Working on a book. I am working on a couple books. The book that you're probably thinking of, I was going to be writing with Cara St. Louis, and we had a falling out, and that's not going to happen. And the books that I'm writing on now, one, I guess neither of them are that book, but one of them has a lot of the same basic ideas. I'm trying to write it in a way that can be accessed by everybody, like in the mainstream community as well as the alternative community. So I'm more approaching it as various philosophies instead of magic, but it's the type of thing that putting the concepts out there will lead people towards the magic. So just a different approach to doing the same thing. That book, when it's finished, will be called What I Learned Eating Grapes in the Dark. So there's that. If any of you like heavy music, please listen to the new In This Moment record. It is fucking fantastic. Maria is one of a lot of you. Let's put it that way. She's a lot like me. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, you will probably enjoy her lyrics and that band on the new album, which is appropriately called Mother. End of announcement, and they didn't pay me for that. If anyone's interested, what I'm smoking there is called God's Green Crack. God's Green Crack. These names are hilarious. had a really good strain called the Phantom Menace one time. If you're a Star Wars fan, definitely check it out. Most yummy, Mama Maria. Yes, Maria is a beautiful lady. You are always welcome. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions, so what can I rant about? Having a conversation this morning, speaking of Maria, about the idea of holy blood. The Illuminati has really done a kind of mind fuck on you when they start talking about the reasons for the royalty. It's all their reasons for the royalty. It's not real reasons for the royalty. Your soul in the body affects your biology. It's part of the magic that you are. So, as souls become what you might consider more powerful in here, just meaning that they've gained and developed more connection to nature and more connection to their higher and internal spirits, that changes the body as well. It'll change the DNA slightly, but more importantly, it kind of supercharges the plasma in our blood. So, holy blood or royal blood can occur in someone that doesn't come from one of those bloodlines, because the soul that is incarnated into that body has made it what they consider to be holy blood. And so all the holy blood really means is hypercharged blood, like a blood that's, the being that's occupying that body has a lot of very strong connection to everything and has developed a lot of energy, and the blood continues to change along with it. So I had thought about that. Oh yes, Thomas says if you do drugs, you will get possessed. That's that same kind of fear bullshit that so many people keep printing into all of you, everyone, about these things. Why does everyone think that they're so weak that they can't enjoy fruits of nature under their own protection and under their own moderation and under their own, I don't have another word. It's kind of silly, demons are bad, sure, but demons are only bad if you don't know how to protect yourself from them. And if you listen to someone tell you that, if any demon comes near you, you're fucked. And if you drink, then you're possessed. And if you smoke, then you're mentally insane, and all these different things, then you're making that real. That's how magic works. You're believing it, right? So, yeah, be human. We're here for a reason, right? We got into these bodies for a reason. Drinking feels nice. Smoking feels nice. Nicotine has positive effects on the biology of your body. These things have positive effects on the biology of your body. Why would we not use them responsibly? And so that's my answer to that question. March has been the longest month ever. I almost feel like I need to take another bong hit after that question, to be honest. New World Order. I keep getting asked about the Q stuff, probably because I had Jenny on and she supports it. When I do podcasts on this channel, I let people talk. I don't necessarily need to support everything that they talk about. That's not why I'm doing it. I'm putting it out there for you all to consider. I don't buy any of it. It seems like nonsense, and a lot of the stuff that gets spread around isn't even coming from Q. It's just the followers of Q selling it back out and putting their own spin on it. I love the mass arrests thing because right in the dialogue from it, I'll read something like, my prime minister has been arrested, and then I watch him on TV a couple hours later, and I'm just kind of like, huh. People are like, oh, he's wearing an ankle bracelet. Are we not paying attention to the rest of what's going on in the world? Logic and reason get thrown out quite often when we want something to be true. And that is one of those cases. A lot of wishful thinking. A cryptid. We talked about Nessie a little while ago. Sasquatch for sure. It's been lots of different things. There was a thunderbird at one point in time, or what the natives used to call a thunderbird. I think they ended up catching that somewhere in the States. And there's still stuff out there. There's a big place. Like Canada's got like 52% of it that like people have never been to. And like the 50 or the 48% that we have been to is massive in and of itself. So if you don't think that there's things living back in rainforests and deep interior forests that we just haven't found yet, then you're probably kidding yourself. I'm sure there's lots of stuff. The thing with cryptids is sometimes it reminds me of, there was a video of a sloth that had mange that got killed by a couple of boys. I think it was in Peru, maybe wrong. And everyone was sharing the video as if they had killed a little gray alien, because if you picture a sloth with no hair, gray skin, it does kind of look like E.T. almost from the movie, just a different color. So that's another part of the cryptid phenomenon, is people will see things like that and think that they're dealing with it. Various species that used to live on the planet that we are aware of. We have things like bones in museums and whatnot. They're documented in textbooks. Do still live. We just don't know where. We don't see them often enough to know. And if you did see one on a one-off, nobody's really gonna. You saw Bigfoot, right? So there's actually, what's it called? The liger. It's some species of cat that it was thought to be extinct. People have been citing somewhere, and now there's like an actual expedition being sent out to find them because there's been so many sightings. I don't think that's ever really in a mainstream way ever happened with Bigfoot, but I'm not going to go there right in a second. Or maybe I should. There's fucking Sasquatch, people. Let's I'm kidding. Massive, yeah, the giant sloth. That would be fun to find. I haven't seen one. I guess to put on the ruiner hat for a minute, I was in a facility for, I guess I should say often, it wasn't really for a long time. Went to a facility often that had a lot of those things in it. I found Cabin in the Woods really funny because of the way that they showed in that movie. All the different killers that they had were in these cells all in the same structure, and they would bring them out to do different things. And I've been in a place that was really similar, so that was kind of a interesting reveal in a movie to me. But yeah, they'll have a lot of those creatures. I don't know if you asked about one specifically. There's a question. Dogman, like Wolfman, something that looks kind of like an upright walking wolf. Bigger wolves, like what else? Like Timberwolf, I think it's Direwolf. That's the name of it. Popular in that Game of Thrones show. Imagine I don't know, I'm not good with numbers. 300-pound wolf jumping up on its hind legs, running at you. Chloe is doing well. My family. Yeah, my family are good. My kids are both safe. Unfortunately, they're pretty far from me, so it's kind of an awkward time for me to see them, or I can't really see them right now. But they're doing well. My younger son has been hilarious. He like, in terms of the like, oh, I get to stay home and I don't have to go to school and I can just be on the internet all day. He loves it, of course. But the older one is they live with a couple people in their own place, so they're 20, so doing their own thing, and both seem great. Just kind of going through it day by day, and we're staying in touch as it happens. So, thank you for the question. They are doing well. What did I see in the facility? I saw tanks with, things that we would call ancient sharks or various type of water animals that we've never found and have been in water sources and terrorized locals over the years. They've been catching these things. That particular facility apparently has been there for a very, very long time. Excuse me. And yeah, hard for me to like think of things because it's pretty much everything you can think of. Mythological creatures, I guess, is a lot of what they get called a lot of times. But yeah, just if you care to hear it, I've swam with a very Nessie-like creature, and it was lovely. Yes, safe. Will they activate something else because of the low numbers? They don't necessarily need to. They can boost those numbers up whenever they want. I'd say don't trust the numbers. There's obviously been a lot of fuckery there. But they can use the numbers however they kind of see fit. So I don't know. They can jack up these numbers. They can have something else happen after it. All depends on how long they need to keep us at home. All depends on how far they want to take things. I can't accurately tell you. I could only speculate. I hope that I'm wrong with any of the predictions that I'm making. Even ultimate prediction being that we are kind of going to have to deal with this until at least September, maybe a full year, and if things don't go well for the people with this plan, then we'll probably see something else happen. Maybe another outbreak of this, maybe something worse. I'm hoping for the better. Don't be scared of Dogman. It's just an animal. I mean, yeah. Are you scared of grizzly bears? I am too. Have I ever lived in the UK? No, I have not. You are welcome. That was my number one priority through that whole circus. So thank you for asking. And yes, she is. And you are welcome. I've seen Sasquatch outside of any of that type of background, just in my regular Shayne world. I used to go to a aunt's house quite frequently, and she lived kind of back in the middle of nowhere, but her property was on like a old side road, and her property was on one side, and right on the other side was another property that belonged to someone else. His name was Art, and Art had just as much land, but on the other side, it was a ridiculous amount of land. And he had four-wheeler trails that had been built generations back, basically, that go through big parts of his land. And there was actually a big man-made lake that had been put there, he said, like about 100 years ago, that they had expanded over time and then got hit by this like river and formed this huge kind of almost like a big giant cove based on that, and another river at the other side to the water. But anyways, there's a big body of water kind of that divided his property in half, is my point of going through all of that. And the four-wheeler trails were always on one side of the lake, and he was always very clear of not going on the other side of the lake. But I was allowed to go on his property and fuck around back there. It was a lot of fun. After a few years of doing that and having sat with him for many, many hours, exchanging stories, a little more listening to him because he was an older man, had been a police officer, very kind soul, he decided to tell me that there was a reason why I wasn't allowed to go on the other side of the lake, and he doesn't let people go over there, and asked if I was ready to keep the secret as to why people weren't allowed to go on the other side of the lake. And of course, I was. I think I was 13. Could be wrong there, but I think I was 13. So we got on the four-wheelers and we went to the lake and went around to this one side and passed the barrier where I was never allowed to pass before, and rode a little bit further around the lake. And then we stopped and we got off and walked a little bit through the bush to this other nice little spot that he had obviously been to before, kind of overlooking the lake. It was very nice. So if you imagine, like, you're sitting here, and if you look out ahead of you, there's open water, and then there's more forest to this side, kind of making a cove going out to a point way out there in the distance, and then kind of a little bit open water into dense forest on that side. We sat for a while, and he had told me to be quiet, and so I was. And then he said, "Okay, now look over there." And he pointed. And when I looked, I saw Sasquatch. There was a family of them, 4. Looked like, I'd only speculate, mother, father, son, daughter. Could have been 2 boys, could have been 2 girls, who knows. But yeah, he went on to tell me that they had lived there. His family had this property for a very long time. He said hundreds of years, as far back as he knew. And that they had been living there since the family took over the property, and it's just been kind of a family secret passed down generation to generation that he was sharing with me. And he had told me that he was going to have to share it with his son because the end of his life was coming, and his son would inherit the property. And he hadn't ever told his son because I guess him and his son didn't get along very well, but there was no one else to leave the property to, so he was going to have to tell his son. I never saw the end of that conversation or how that conversation went, but I can definitely infer that it went bad because I had gone back a couple of years later, and Art had died, and my aunt told me about a day where the military all showed up and went back into Art's property and came out with 4 very large body bags. So there's that story. Yeah, and that's, to my knowledge, how they tend to deal with those things when they find them. Do I use magic, and if so, what sort? Kind of just for my own personal body and sphere, if you will. I don't cast anything out. I do very little opening myself up to hearing people telepathically. I do very little anything else outside of that. Personal reasons for that. Not a fear, just a realization of character and self-control. So I do that. Yeah, that's kind of what I do, and I try to manage my voice because the voices obviously go out in frequency in such a way that it has an influence, and that's a form of magic. I create music that I intend to have an effect on people, and that's a form of magic. And I like to teach people, and that's a form of magic. I love the shit out of a lot of people, and that's a form of magic. So yes, I use magic, and those are some examples as to how. Stina Bobina, I've heard that name. Someone sent me an email about that name once. I didn't know who she was. Hi, Steamer. It's a standout name. That's why I'm noticing it. Just saying. Good night, Gemma. Any more fun stories? See, and if you remember, the stoner in Cabin in the Woods is the one who survived, so smoke him if you got him. Use some of my audio interview with Randy in my videos. Maybe that's why people had emailed me about you. I can't even recall the subject matter. I think it was just a comment of whether or not I had ever spoken to you or knew who you were. But obviously we haven't, and I didn't. But hi, nice to meet you. All right. Long hits for everybody. While you're all bunkered down, and it even feeds into this next question. While you're all bunkered down and looking for something that might help you in the future see things coming, watch the Resident Evil series. They can be a little hokey at times, and obviously it's got all that stupid over-the-top action. Some people just don't like watching zombie movies, but there's a lot of information about the way that they operate and have operated and the way that things are set to go. Zombie cities in the underground, I guess that can be part of this too, because when I was talking earlier, I said that there was a virus that we all kind of have that kind of gets turned on when they need it. It's a multi-layered virus, and there's many of them. But one such virus that is there is what we would consider to be called the zombie virus. It's not just a piece of fiction. Even if you were to kind of dig into some old magazines of a legal battle that went on between George A. Romero and I think his name was John Russo at the time of Night of the Living Dead, the original one. George Romero went on to make Of the Dead series. So there was Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, to put them in proper order, Land of the Dead. So Of the Dead. And then Of the Living Dead went to the other guy in a court battle. The reason why the battle happened was because one of them wanted to explain why the zombie outbreak happened, and the other one was under an NDA from the military not to do so. So zombie virus has been a real thing in that movie. They kind of show it as a gas that causes it, but it could also be looked at a gas that activates it and starts a general outbreak. So this virus exists, and once it's in you, it can be activated in various ways. There can be the contagion aspect of it, which is what you see in the movies of being bit and then it working like a poison on your bloodstream, killing you that way. But they started showing in like later zombie stuff that everybody already has the virus, and if you die, you come back as one, right? So that's the way that it works. You've already got it. If you die, you come back as one. So there are underground cities, and some of these cities get used for live simulations. There are simulations that are all done in here, and then there are simulations that are done out here in the real world. And they use underground cities to test things like viruses and zombie outbreaks. So that's that. Basic overview. And I always hesitate to do it because I don't like talking about things that I've been through, because I understand that I can't prove any of this stuff and it's a little bit irresponsible, but people like to hear it just as storytelling. And so I'll probably end up doing it at some point in time where I go into my own experiences of having been through those simulations. And when I joke about my immunity to this virus, it's because I've already had it to its end. So if you have been listening to what I've been saying, you can understand what I mean by that. I've had it longer than everybody else. I've lived through its outcome twice in real space and twice virtually, or in here simulations. And it's not a pleasant experience. But because I'm so well prepared for it, I was kind of hoping that this was what was going to happen. Unfortunately, we got something a little bit more gross, in my opinion. But I'm really hoping that they really have no reason to depopulate. They really don't. Even by their own estimations, we can go with at least 14 billion people, no problem. But those billions of people need to be managed properly, and so that's what we're seeing now. It's just a different way of herding the sheep, if you will, that will sustain our population growth. People will kind of level themselves out, natural planet system, as people become more educated and society becomes more structured and stable. Birth rates kind of come down. Seems counterintuitive, but lots of research shows that is true, and that is true. So I don't think that we're ever going to see a day where they depopulate on a massive scale. Maybe on a few thousand here, a few thousand there, 6 million here, 6 million there, but never just bring everybody down to like, what is it, like 80%, like the 500,000 people or something stupid. They no need to do it, and they won't do it. Did I miss any questions? I like that noise. I stole it from John Lajoie. Anyone ever watch him? Funny guy. No, I agree with that. I empathize completely with people who are looking for some type of proof out of someone like me, because I agree with you. And if I were trying to sell this as a platform, I were trying to like shout a message from a rooftop, I damn well, yes, I should have to. If I'm going to do something like try and sell you on something, it's coming now, then why the fuck would you have any incentive to listen to me if I couldn't prove it all? But I'm just putting those ideas out them. I believe in my experiences, and I'm happy to share them for people who would like to listen, and I don't need people to not to. That's why I do this on my own channel, and I don't look out for people. I don't call people up and be like, hey, I need to come on your show. Like get me on an interview right away. I got a message to deliver. I've never done that. You're never going to find anyone who says that I have. And that's because I don't operate that way. People call me and they're like, hey, this is going on. Can we talk to you about it? Sure. If that's a problem, then there's lots of other channels to listen to. Zombies are more fun. Zombies are definitely more fun. And to the person asking that question, hello. And I'm going to edit a podcast in the next couple of days where I got asked a ton of questions about underground cities and how they work and where they started and all that stuff. That'll elaborate on all of that. So hopefully, I got lots of time, so getting to doing this is a little bit easier. That's why I'm sitting here. How long has it been? Ooh, it's a while. Are there other planets we can reincarnate on? Planets that aren't so draconian? Abso-fucking-lutely there are. And you are more than welcome to do so. Just enjoy the time that you're here while you can. As much as you can. And that's why you got to try and have as much fun as you can while you are here. Speaking of fun, what's everybody else doing for fun? Tell me. I know someone's doing a lot of dancing. I thought about playing like background music here, but I think I'll get in trouble. There's copyrights on shit. So, yeah, I better not do that. Might even get canceled for this. I think if you heard the music off my phone when I started to. New Pearl Jam record, I haven't got there yet. Yeah, definitely a big fan of that band. I also like that they've been kind of stepped away for a while. I like that they didn't really milk it. It's a good era of bands right there. And they're one of the ones that are still alive. That tells you something. Riding an e-bike. I live in Toronto. It's like a big city. We see those things everywhere. They look like so much fun. I do really want one. Seems kind of safe. I was listening to Edward Norton talk about living in New York and driving either an e-bike or a motorcycle around. Imagine like in a city, it's probably a lot safer than a car, as much as you might not think that at first. But it also just seems like a lot of fun. And what I like about it is when you see people who like kind of mount their own stereo with loudspeakers on them and then they drive by you and you can hear what they're listening to, that just always makes me smile. Oh, Dogman encounters. Well, you're helping your own little fear of your dogmen, aren't you? It's a good way to work through it, though. I watch a lot of horror movies. I finally am a fan of Rob Zombie as a person, more than I am a fan of his music and movies, which sounds weird, but I always remember reading articles with him speaking or even hearing him speak in interviews and just thinking, like, that's a solid dude. And I was never really into White Zombie all that much or his Rob Zombie stuff. Musically, some good songs. I like the style, but it just didn't catch me the way some other bands did. And same thing with his movies. It was like one of those things where it was like, oh, I need to watch that one day. I need to watch that one day, and I didn't. And then he made Halloween, and I'm a big Halloween fan, Michael Myers fan. So I had to watch his Halloween, and oh my goodness, it's so good, so good. And I then became a fan of Rob Zombie as a filmmaker, but I didn't really know a lot of his good movies. So I decided to. He just put out one called 3 from Hell, and I was reading about it and realized it's actually part of a trilogy that he made. So I downloaded the 3 of them, and they were a lot of fun. A lot of like gory, creepy nonsense, if you're into that kind of thing. Stina, no new Halloween, or are you just stickler for the old ones? I don't say they're better than the old ones. I just like them. It's a fun style. Very brutal, very raw. Very brutal, very raw. I don't mind gory if it looks real. Then again, I'm a weirdo. Not a lot of people know what it really looks like. And then the second Halloween movie that he made was kind of started going a bit crazy. So if your opinion steers with that one, then yeah. But what was the trilogy that I was talking about? I think he calls it the Firefly series. Might be Fireside, something like that. It's House of 1,000 Corpses, The Devil's Rejects, and the newest one is 3 from Hell. It's basically about a family of serial killers that are all really twisted, but a lot of fun. His wife is, of course, in them. Shannon Moon. And she's awesome in those movies for sure. Devil's Rejects is probably one of the better horror movies I've ever seen. What musicians have you met and hung out with? I worked a security job up until not that long ago. Met a bunch that way too. Got to meet Brian Adams, who's kind of Canada famous. You guys probably have heard of him too. Everything I do it for you. That guy. hung out with him. Justin Bieber. It was a little bit after his DUI. I was at a recording studio with my band, and he uses that recording studio. So he was there, and we had smoked some weed together, and we're having a great conversation. And he was hilarious. We had an awesome conversation. I was trying to get him to go on YouTube or Facebook with me, like a Facebook Live video, and he wouldn't do it. But they had a gold plaque of Justin Bieber on the wall. So I went over to the wall and I stood next to it. And I held my phone up and I started making a live Facebook video saying, just sitting here, hanging out with my BFF, J Beebs, that kind of thing. And as I say that, you hear someone laugh. And it's actually Justin Bieber. Nice kid, has no idea what is going on with him, what he's used for. They're good with that. Yeah, the whole clones with celebrities and all that, it gets a little bit too far. They're not all aware. They don't all know what's going on. It's not every single fucking one of them. There's like an echelon you can kind of look at and think that if they've crossed that point, then they probably are. But again, it's not a rule either. People make choices, right? So I don't like to I'm not supposed to name names. If you were to ask me, I could answer yes or no questions about whether or not I saw any of these people in other than real life situations, other than real life. What I mean by that is other than my verifiable life as Shayne. Yeah, one celebrity I got to hang out with for a day doing security was Jennifer Lawrence, and that was definitely interesting because of the setting. She has no reason, obviously, to talk to me about anything to do with the occult. But there was a bunch of things she kept doing that I recognized as being that type of behavior, nonetheless. So, read between the lines there. Justin Bieber was really nice. Yes, he was. I met him after that as well, again in a professional setting. I worked for a hockey arena that a hockey team, like a professional hockey team, plays at, and he would rent out the ice sometimes for him and Selena Gomez to come in and skate around just for a little while. He's a nice guy, very polite. What do you expect from anyone? Like, take all of the occult stuff away from this. And what do you expect from a human being who is famous that young and just, here's $3 million, have fun with life? Like I had grown women talking about raping him when he was like 12 and shit. How do we expect that kid to grow up to be well adjusted? He can't. Give him a break. Yes, I know he's controlled and all that stuff, but still give some people breaks. Especially in this generation, because we're at a point with all the satanic ritual abuse stuff where we're well past the third generation. And once you pass the third generation, people just work on an autopilot. It's in their genetic memory. It's in their instincts. It's in their behavior. They don't have control over it. They can learn to control it, but they don't inherently have control over it. It's a lot stronger in them than it is in you and I. So don't forget to remember that these people are people. We all have these aspects within ourselves, and if someone chose to manipulate them within us, then we could very much be in their shoes. So just be happy that you're not, and remember to maintain some empathy. The fault lies on the people kind of above them. Flea and Jason Newsted is no longer there, but I've met both of them. Oh, they're both bass players. Neat. I'll answer that question for you. Wolf Hazel and I have never met. I've seen her online for a long time now, and I believe she's friends with a good friend of mine. My favorite comedians? I always miss it. I can never remember her name. Eliza? It's a female. She's definitely my favorite. She makes a lot of. Why can't I remember her name? I like Joey Diaz a lot. That was the last podcast I did. I actually did a little homage to Joey Diaz because that man's just lived life and like the grimiest aspects of the life that all of us want to believe isn't there. And he did it. He came back from it. So I admire him a lot. He's also very funny when he recounts a lot of those experiences. So Joey Diaz is way up there. Tony Hinchcliffe, I like a lot. Dave Chappelle, it's impossible not to like him. I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan's podcasts, but I don't. He's funny. He's always funny, but I don't necessarily just watch him as a comedian. So I think that's it. George Carlin. Gotta love George Carlin. Muscle memory. Yep. Kind of like that. Love you, Hazel. In spirit and intention, yes. My roommate's making a stew. It's bubbling. It keeps catching my attention because I keep going, what's that noise? Hi, Kaz. It'd be a good time for a question. I'll hit a bong while you contemplate. It's been a while now. I don't know how long you guys wanted me to keep sitting in this chair, but it's been fun so far. Thanks. Oh, poor Roseanne. So that wouldn't have happened to her as a comedian. That would have happened to her with the TV show. It can definitely happen later in life. You don't have to be born into it. You can achieve your own level of success and go for the dangling carrot. I would say over the last 10 or 15, 20 years, that's probably been more and more and more common. I said it earlier, the bloodlines don't mean a lot anymore. A lot of it is really just about the last name and like whether or not you are actually part of the family, meaning that you are capable of using their influence in that way, money, positions in society, whatever it is. And when it comes to controlling people, they can kind of pick for the general public. The whole idea of them just doing it within their own family or only doing it within their own family was something they put out in order to make you think that you were safe if you weren't. It's a shitty thing to have to say out loud. But yeah, you don't have to be born of this or that in order to have been used and abused by their underground system projects and cults, programs, projects and cults. And then there's the military and all their stupidity. So Roseanne, got that level of famous. I would say she ate one of the dangling carrots and paid the price. I mean, I kind of hope. Either way, she suffered the price that you would pay if you did do that. Get into it and then try to get out of it without doing it within their framework of getting out, which is either non-existent or very stringent. Then they do things to you like what they've done to ruin that poor woman. So, I mean, she's going to be okay. I've heard from her a few times recently. I haven't listened to her own podcasts yet. Obviously, she's figuring some things out and looking into some new areas of her memory that she's researching on the internet, and she's going to get confused and led astray at times, just like the rest of us. But she'll be all right, and lots of love and respect to her. Devs? I don't think I've even heard of that. Looking glass technology. I wonder what that actually means. I know people talk about looking glass technology, but sometimes I always wonder what they mean. I think it gets confused with the crypto. What do they call that? Crypto vision? I don't know. I get confused with what different whistleblowers have said over times and the mythology that the alternative community kind of took on because of it. I can't keep track of it all. I'm sorry. My understanding of looking glass technologies is more or less this CTV system that they have now through Google. It's just the older version of it. When they were first putting up satellites, high-powered cameras that we didn't know existed yet. Thinking of a movie that they showed something like that in. I think it was one, Enemy of the State. You would think it was a Will Smith movie, where like years and years and years and years after they had already been using that, they showed us what it was, and that was a type of technology I've heard some people refer to as looking glass. And then there's other people I've heard refer to it as something that looks into the future. And I get a few people who I'm quite good friends with who get upset with me when I start talking about the future and timelines and what people are seeing when they look into these things. So with looking into the future, you're looking into a potential. So if you imagine everything as it is right now is this point right here, and you look over to this point, that point that you're looking at is determined by where you are right now. But a lot of different things can happen in between here that may or may not happen based on where everything is now, and no technology can predict that. Time's not set in stone like that, so you can't really look at it in that way. You can see things coming, but you don't have, here it is on a television screen for us all to watch. Oh, there's, David Wilcock getting that secret document from the Blue Avians. We need to make sure that we get back in time and stop that from happening. Shit like that is not happening. Yeah, it's just not. Again, like you predict outcome of something based on what all the variables that you have to work on. A lot of things can happen between point A and point B that you didn't foresee, you didn't anticipate, and therefore could change that outcome. And that's why you can't be that sure of things. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many words to it all. I can't keep track of them all. I'll come back to that in a minute, Stina. The mark of the beast RFID chip? I think that's what that's asking. I don't think they're going to use the RFID chip after all, because all the early tests of it weren't working too well, and not enough people were buying it. I could imagine as things start to go more digital with record keeping moving out of this, though, I can imagine something like that being implemented in place of like health cards. There's been some talk about it for years anyways, so I could see them starting to add that technology to people if they start to determine that this outbreak is unmanageable and people are not listening to quarantine orders and things like that, and they feel like they need to police that in somehow. They've already started adding the facial recognition software to the data pool of people that are supposed to be under quarantine to try and pick off if they're breaking quarantine, things like that. So we see this trend continue, then a plausible solution for them is some form of, ID chip, or maybe a card to start with. I remember they were talking about doing driver's license on chips too, so it might be a good excuse for them to use that. Oh, yes. My roommate is making a stew. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, the blue chicken cult. Project Bluebirds. Da, 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 da. I caught up on The Walking Dead too. That was another thing I've been watching. I think there's another episode like tomorrow or something. No more chickens. All right. So Stina would like a little background. What do they call me? A whistleblower. That's what they call me. Was born into a family that is part of one of those bloodlines on both sides of my family. I was identified at a young age as having certain cognitive gifts and was put into the secret programs. A lot of these kind of start off as, kind of like a school setting where you're learning things, and while they're teaching you these things, they're also identifying things about your character that they can perhaps exploit in the future. Through all of that, I got to see how the underground world exists and is utilized to control what goes on the surface. Was privy to a lot of the history that they've obfuscated over time by burning books and killing the right people so that they can keep that information away from the general public. So that's a basic summary of that. I wrote the reason why people know who I am in that regard is because I had written a blog called the Ruiner blog. What's the subtitle? Inside the Illuminati Mind, something like that. That was written for some people that I was in these projects with, who had got out of them as I had, who were asking me a bunch of questions knowing that I knew the answers to them. And I was sending a bunch of emails every day, and it was really, really tedious. One of them had suggested that I did a blog that was open to all of them, and I did, and I didn't really understand technology all that much to know that I could have made it like a private thing that I only invited them each to, but that wouldn't have worked in retrospect anyways. Semantics, that not all of them wanted to sign up for account for that. Anyways, I started writing this blog for about 13 growed to 20 people that I know personally and had asked me to write it. And because Corey Good was hawking his blue avians at the time, and I wrote a blog that was called Avians, the alternative community found it and posted it. I think it was Project Camelot who got a hold of it first. I could be wrong. There was a step before Project Camelot, but Project Camelot posted it. And then it all took off from there. The next thing I know, it went from 20 people to thousands of people reading it, and everybody wanted to know who I was, talk to me and all of that stuff. So I waited until I had finished the blog, and once the blog was completed, I decided that I would answer questions about the blog, and I did that for a while, and in the process of doing that, met a lot of cool people, and decided that I liked having these conversations with people about this stuff and kind of hearing what they believe and why and the experiences that they had. So I started my own YouTube channel, which I'm on right now, in order to have those types of conversations with people. Stina, if you want to reach out, you could come on sometime. That would actually probably be pretty cool. Anyways, that should answer your question. Not publicly, no. Privately. There were a few different, what would you call them, researchers in the alternative community that I had spoken to privately under different contexts. And then I spent the better part of 2 months speaking to David Wilcock every day for about 4 hours a day. And I know that he was listening to what I was saying and doing conferences based on that. It was a little bit before the Blue Avian thing. If you don't know the story there, I could have been Corey Good. I just didn't want to be. I got asked to do I didn't know the name of it, but Cosmic Disclosure show before Corey, based on private conversations I had been having with David Wilcock. All right. One last bong hit, and then we can play for a little while longer. So this has been fun. I posted this on Twitter. I used Twitter for the first time. I think oh man, I can't even remember the last time I tweeted something. But I never go on Twitter. I did it wasn't even a podcast I did. It was a Facebook post. Someone had tagged me, Trevor. I'm having Trevor on the podcast soon. He had tagged me on a Facebook post anyways and shared the blog link with a bunch of people. And then the next thing I knew, my Twitter was blowing up and I was getting a bunch of emails and stuff. And traced it all back to him having shared that blog. So I had gone on Twitter to say that I was doing this and then posted it on the Ruiner Author Facebook page. But other than that, it was all just kind of off the cuff, just something I got in my head that I wanted to try and see how it went. And I don't even know how any of this works. Oh, there's the numbers. There's 25 people. That's kind of cool. I thought there was the 4 or 5 of you I see just talking here. Anyways, yeah, if you got to talk to, I don't understand. I didn't come forward into this arena as a whistleblower on purpose. I just respected that I was one once I got here and made myself open, not really realizing that everyone else wasn't, but I found that out in a hurry. I'm open to every question. You can yell at me, scream at me all you want. I'm cool with it. I'm sure in some way we could find common ground between each other, like each other as humans. Even if you think that I'm making all of this shit up, I'm cool with it. I hope you are too. I don't know, the number's fluctuating over here. It says 20 something. Well, it's been kind of fun. I'm glad I didn't have to play guitar or anything serious, silly, and start singing and acting foolish. It's been enough questions to kind of keep us occupied at least this far. Looks like that has stopped, so I may say goodbye for now. Just try not to be scared. Don't give in to the fear of all this. Don't listen to all the hype. Just let it go in. Focus on what matters. You should always be ready in case the worst were to happen, because you just never know. Nature is metal, so you never know what can happen. But you don't need to you don't need to spend all this time soaking into that energy either. You can finish up those creative projects you've left on the shelf for a while, or get into that painting that you've always wanted to do. Sing and dance around your living room, naked if you want to. However, whatever floats your boat. Just have fun and try not to worry so much. I haven't had contact with CW lately. We played a little bit of tag, I think, about a month ago, maybe a little bit longer. Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever see him on Skype or whatever, but he knows where I am. I think last time we had played tag, he was at. So yeah, I'll wrap it up with that. Everybody enjoy the time. Please enjoy the time. Don't just sit at home miserable about what might come or what is happening. Just, keep one eye on the ground, one eye on the sky, But either way, you're beautiful, powerful, creative beings that can take on all of it, and you knew what you were signing up for anyways. So trust yourself in that. And I love you. Mama loves you. We'll leave it at that. Bye, everybody.